Your phone buzzes. You look. Nothing important. You look again 10 minutes later anyway. You've done this today without even noticing. Maybe 40 times, maybe more. You tell yourself it's boredom or habit or bad discipline. But the real answer is far stranger. It has almost nothing to do with your phone. It has everything to do with a survival system installed in you long before phones, before electricity, before cities existed at all. You are not addicted to your phone. You are addicted to information about your environment, and that craving is older than language itself. Picture your ancestors 60,000 years ago standing at the edge of a clearing. A twig snaps somewhere in the brush. What do? They don't shrug it off. They can't afford to. That sound might be nothing. Or it might be a predator, a rival group, a shift in the weather that threatens the whole camp. So the brain does something specific in that moment. It floods with attention. It demands more data. Was that dangerous? Is it still there? Should I check again? That reflex kept your ancestors alive. The ones who ignored strange sounds, who didn't bother checking twice, tended not to pass on their genes. The ones who stayed alert, who kept scanning, who couldn't quite let an unresolved signal go, they survived. They reproduced. And slowly, that hypervigilant checking instinct became standard equipment in the human brain. Now fast forward. There are no lions in the clearing anymore. There's a small glass rectangle in your pocket. But the ancient circuitry doesn't know the difference. It just knows there might be new information out there. And it wants to know what it is. Here's where it gets interesting though, because the urge to check isn't really about fear anymore. Not entirely. There's a second ancient system layered on top of the first one, and this one is about something even more basic to being human: your place in the group. The anthropologist Robin Dunbar spent decades studying primate social structures, and he found something remarkable. Across species, the size of a primate's social group correlates directly with the size of its neocortex, the part of the brain responsible for complex thought. Bigger groups require more mental bandwidth, because you have to track who's allied with whom, who's angry at whom, who owes whom a favor, who might turn on you while you sleep. Dunbar proposed that humans evolved unusually large brains, largely to manage these social webs. He estimated that humans can meaningfully track relationships with around 150 people. That number still gets debated, but the underlying point holds up. Your brain is, at its core, a social monitoring machine. For most of human history, checking on your social world meant walking to the fire, listening to gossip, watching faces for signs of tension. It meant knowing, in real time, whether you were still safe within the tribe. Status wasn't abstract. It was survival. Exclusion from the group in the ancestral world didn't mean loneliness. It meant death, usually a slow one, alone, without the resources a group provides. So your brain built a second alarm, quieter than the fear of predators, but just as persistent. Am I still accepted? Has anything changed? Did I miss something? That alarm doesn't go silent just because there's no fire to sit around anymore. It just goes looking for a new source of signal. And in the modern world, it found one that never runs out. This is where the story takes its strange turn. Because the compulsion to check isn't actually driven by what you find. It's driven by what you don't yet know. In the 1990s, a neuroscientist named Wolfram Schultz ran a series of experiments on monkeys that changed how scientists understood dopamine entirely. For decades, dopamine had been called the brain's pleasure chemical. Schultz's work showed that wasn't quite right. He trained monkeys to expect a reward, a squirt of juice, after a specific light appeared. At first, dopamine spiked when the juice arrived, but over time, something shifted. The dopamine spike moved earlier. It started firing the moment the light appeared, not when the juice landed in the monkey's mouth. The chemical wasn't rewarding pleasure. It was rewarding prediction. It was firing in the gap between wanting and knowing. Then Schultz did something crucial. He made the reward unpredictable. Sometimes the light led to juice, sometimes it didn't. What happened to the dopamine response? It didn't drop. It spiked even higher, and it stayed elevated far longer than before. Uncertainty, it turned out, was more stimulating to the brain's reward system than certainty ever was. Does that sound familiar yet? Long before Schultz's monkeys, the psychologist B.F. Skinner discovered something almost identical using pigeons and a lever. Skinner found that pigeons rewarded with food every single time they pressed a lever eventually pressed it lazily, without much urgency. But pigeons rewarded on a random, unpredictable schedule, sometimes getting food, sometimes not, pressed the lever obsessively, compulsively, far more than the pigeons who always knew what they'd get. Skinner called this variable ratio reinforcement, and it remains to this day the single most powerful method known for driving repetitive behavior in a living creature. You already see where this is going. Your phone is not a predator. It's not a campfire. But it is, almost perfectly, a variable ratio reinforcement machine wrapped around your two oldest instincts. Every time you unlock it, you're the pigeon pressing the lever. Sometimes there's a message that matters. Sometimes there's nothing. You never know in advance which one it will be, and that uncertainty is exactly what keeps the behavior alive. It isn't the notification that hooks you. It's the gap right before you see it. The same gap Schultz found lighting up dopamine in his monkeys. And the content itself speaks directly to that second ancient alarm, the social one. A like is a small signal of group acceptance. A comment is evidence you still matter to someone. A message left unread is a modern, miniature version of the ancestral fear of exclusion. None of this was designed by evolution to be exploited this precisely. But the systems that build and refine these apps run constant experiments, testing which colors, which sounds, which delays keep people checking longest. They didn't invent your craving. They just found the oldest lever in the human brain and started pulling it, thousands of times a day, across billions of people. Here's the counterintuitive part, though, the part that flips the whole story. You'd think the solution is more willpower. Just don't check. Just put it away. But willpower was never built to fight ancient survival circuitry, and treating this like a discipline problem usually fails for exactly that reason. You are not weak for reaching for your phone 40 times a day. You are running software that was optimized over hundreds of thousands of years to treat unresolved information as a threat and social silence as danger. Fighting that with sheer resolve is like trying to hold your breath through willpower alone. Eventually, the older system wins, because it was never designed to lose. What actually works, according to researchers studying digital habit formation, isn't resistance. It's removing the variability itself. Turning off random notifications, checking messages at set times instead of constantly. Making the reward predictable again, the way Skinner's well-fed pigeons eventually calmed down once the food stopped surprising them. When the uncertainty disappears, so does most of the compulsion. Not because you got stronger, because you stopped feeding the exact mechanism that was never about the phone in the first place. Think about that clearing again. 60,000 years ago. The twig snaps. The ancestor freezes, scans, listens. That moment of alertness wasn't a flaw. It was precisely calibrated for a world where missing a signal could mean death, and where belonging to the group was the only real form of safety anyone had. That system carried humans through ice ages, migrations, famines, and generations of uncertainty no phone will ever recreate. It just never got the memo that the danger passed. So the next time you catch yourself reaching for your phone with no reason at all, you're not failing at anything. You're listening to a survival call 60,000 years old, one that used to save your ancestors' lives and now just wants to know if anyone replied. Your phone buzzes again. You look, and somewhere underneath that simple motion, a hunter is still listening for the sound in the brush. If your brain just relaxed a little reading that, hit subscribe. There's a lot more of it left. Still running you, still unnoticed.